Hello, Robs. We're back with more books. Let's get into it. Went to about 83 thrift stores today. Well, maybe not 83, but at least three. Four? No, I went to three, plus I went to two antique stores. So let's start. Fromm's. How Julius Fromm's condom empire fell to the Nazis. I've reached about my saturation point with books about Nazis and books about Holocaust survivors. But this one I made an exception for because I'd never heard of this. Fromm's or the condom factory fell to the Nazis. Was he German? You would assume he is. If you wanted to buy a top quality condom in pre-war Germany, you bought Fromm's Act, the first brand name condom and still a leader in the German market. The man behind this pure German quality product was Julius Fromm, a Jewish entrepreneur who had emigrated from Russia as a child. Fromm was in the right place at the right time. He patented Fromm's Act in 1916 when the combination of changing sexual mores, awareness of sexual health, and the lack of reliable prophylactics created the market prime for his product. In 1922, he began mass production and opened international branches. 16 years later, after building the brand into a bestseller and the company into a model business, he was forced to sell Fromm's Act for a fraction of its worth to a German baroness in 1939. In 1939, he and his family fled to London. Crazy. Sleuths, Inc. Studies of Problem Solvers. Doyle, Simenon, Hammett, Ambler, and Chandler. I got it, of course, because of Sherlock Holmes. It's the only thing I really care about in this book. Sherlock Holmes. Since I have a shitload of Sherlock Holmes books for no known reason. That some problems seem unsolvable by man is a proposition agreed upon by problem solvers of many sorts and sizes, including the master, Sherlock Holmes. At the end of the adventure known as the cardboard box, the great sleuth, disturbed by certain events included in the problem, turned to Watson and said, "What is the meaning of it, Watson? What object is served by this circle of misery and violence and fear? It must tend to some end, or else our universe is ruled by chance, which is unthinkable. But what end? There is the great standing perennial problem, to which human reason is as far from an answer as ever." Kind of like the cover, too. Michigan State Fair Memories, 1959 to 2009. I don't think I've ever been to the State Fair. But, is that J.L. Hudson? Is that who that was? I guess I'll never know because I can't find it now. I don't give a shit. I got it because it's a Michigan book, and obviously, if you've gotten this far in this place, on this channel, you know that I collect Michigan books and have hundreds of them. Sweetwater Storms and Spirits. Stories of the Great Lakes, selected and edited by Victoria Brum. I believe I have this book, possibly on hardcover. But it didn't show up on my Libib, so that's that. The Story of English, a companion to the PBS television series. Obviously, you know what English is. The best kind of English. 50-cent books. Guess I should pile this over here since this is a Michigan book too. Thought I had this book as well. The Ford, the Men and the Machine, Robert Lacey. Obviously, it's about Henry Ford. Oh, that sounds like the spines are cracking. Evolution of the Car. Oh, there you go. There's this crack of the binding. There's Henry dancing as he brought back all the old waltzes. He was obsessed with them. What year is this book? I'm guessing the 80s or 90s. 86. As I said before, 50 cents. Can't pass it up. Bonnie Parker gun and Ford V8. Look at this guy. I'm the man, bro. Nice moisture exposure on the bottom of that book. Stalingrad, the fateful siege, 1942 to 1943. On August 23rd, 1942, Hitler's 16th Panzer Division halted on the banks of the Volga. To their right, the city of Stalingrad blazed from the first of General von Richtenfen's air raids, which ultimately killed 40,000 civilians. Many German soldiers thought the war against Russia was won. But in Stalin's namesake city on the Volga, Hitler had chosen the wrong target. The Battle of Stalingrad would be the most pitiless and perhaps the most important battle in history. When the fighting was over, the world would begin to believe for the first time that Hitler could be defeated. Well, I mean, if he probably wouldn't have stayed there for the dug in for the winter, he probably could have beat them, though. Eventually, he would have been exhausted on some front, most likely American front. Queen Victoria, personal history. She looks like a ghost before she even died. Filled with fascinating insights. I can imagine. Selected stories of Eudora Welty. My God. Eudora Welty's subjects are the people who live in southern towns like Jackson, Mississippi, which has been her home for all of her long life. I've stayed in one place, she says, and it's become the source of the information that stirs my imagination. Her distinctive voice and wry observations are rooted in the Southern conversational tradition. The stories in this volume for the first two collections she published range in tone from the quietly understated and psychologically blah, blah, blah. What's it, basically two stories? A Curtain of Green? Or is that just the... I see. Those are just the chapter headings. Many Mansions, the most arresting and convincing proof of karma and reincarnation which has yet been given the Western world. R.L. Kennedy, Ex Libris. Many Mansions by Gina Shermanara, a quiet bestseller since its original publication in 1950. This is the book that Maury Bernstein, author of The Search for Bridie Murphy, called a signal for the beginning of a new phase in my life. The concept of reincarnation is common to many Eastern religions, but Western thought has tended to overlook it. This volume explores some important evidence for what the author calls the magnificent possibility that reincarnation is a truth. Obviously, it's a vintage book, 67. Almost antique at this point. In fairly good shape, other than the chunk off the front, which probably got severed. when it was donated. Looks like a pretty clean cut. Evelyn Waugh, Brideshead Revisited. I don't know anything about Evelyn Waugh, although there's underlining and marginalia in it that I did not see. So I guess I'm keeping this and not selling it. Cool little covers. Clip art covers. I don't know anything about Evelyn Waugh, except it's a dude and not a chick. The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty. A shitload of these. I should have scanned the barcode to see which ones I needed. Obviously, I have too many of these. The goal is to sell the paperbacks. I guess the goal is to keep one set of each, and then not that I'm ever reading these. But I have them. Europe's Inner Demons, Norman Cohn. Major new perspective on the history and dynamics of mass fear, hate, and persecution. Great cover. Changing Views of the Devil. Prelude in Antiquity. This would be a good book to read on this channel. The human tendency to create one's own demons and then attack them is the recurring theme of this investigation of 15th centuries of European persecution, beginning with the lurid slanders and savage attacks against the early Christian communities in the Roman world and extending through the waves of hysteria and slaughter that periodically swept Christian Europe. Europe's Inner Demons convincingly demonstrates that the notorious massive witch hunts of the 16th and 17th centuries were not an inexplicable aberration, but a continuation of a powerful historical current. The author carefully examines the striking similarity of accusations leveled against the objects of society's wrath, whether they were primitive Christians, Waldensian dissenters, the Knights Templars, or so-called witches. This landmark study not only allows us to understand some of the greatest horrors of history, but also to recognize a danger that is far from dead. And thus starts my piles of... Don't get too close to the candle, buddy. Don't get too close. You can see my little record cabinet. Pretty cool, huh? Got some pretty good mass markies. First one's Dune. I've sold the hardcover version of this a couple times for great money. Figure I should have a copy. People talk about this as... What's that called? I don't know what it's called. Dystopian. I call it a great dystopian novel. Maybe I'll just watch the movie. Obviously I buy these romance novels, gothic horror novels, just because they go into my bad movie or bad book collection. I may read some more of these on my channel, although Eden Southworth seems to have taken the place as the queen of the mantle on that channel. Arthur C. Clarke, Tales from the White Heart, scientist, lecturer, novelist. Explorer is a man. Here then are stories of a silencer that absorbs sound and electronic brain that gives insulting answers. Stories such as would have delighted H.G. Wells, told in the comfort of that obscure London pub Hub for science fiction writers. Here are the tales from the White Hart. Never heard of it. I don't like sci-fi. Books falling apart. Still cool to have. Expedition to Earth. 11 fine science fiction stories by the author of Childhood's End. Hope this one. I guess I could have checked the binding before I bought it. The binding looks pretty tight except for at the beginning. There's an obvious split there. What year do we have here? 1961. Still 60-some years old. My 12 Years with John F. Kennedy by Evelyn Lincoln. Personal secretary to the president. Shockingly, this book still has some value. And this one I have is actually in great shape, so I may sell it if I already have it, which I probably do because I have a ton of Kennedy mass market paperbacks that I'll never read. Eventually, should probably sell them as a lot. Martians Go Home. Frederick Brown. Frederick Brown is at his best in this eerie science fiction classic of the invasion of the Earth by 1 billion Martians in the year of 1964. That's fucking brilliant. So 9 years, or 8 years after he wrote it, 8 or 9 years after he wrote it, he expected a Martian. Maybe I'll read this one on my channel. What's it, 150 pages? Fucker's falling apart anyways. Might as well just, see, it's fucking coming right apart. That's why you don't mess with these books if you plan to sell them. Well, you can't really resell some piece of shit like that, but it's cool to own it. Alfred Hitchcock's Fear and Trembling. 13 satanic stories by such peerless writers as Ray Bradbury, John Buchan, John Collier, and H.G. Wells. What's that say? The book rack. What's that say? Alfred Hitchcock. Adele Mystery. 1948. Look at that fucking guy. Lord Dunsey, the sack of emeralds. Guess you could just look at the front, you dumb fucking find. Ghost Hunt. None of these seem to be about Satan. Not that I was looking for satanic stories, but there we go. There's the corner of that page. Cover now missing. Edgar Casey, The Sleeping Clairvoyant. Venture Inward. Strange World of ESP, Dreams, LSD, and Other Startling Psychic Phenomena. Hugh Lynn Casey. 5th Big Printing. The Flying Saucer Reader, edited by J. David. Why Scientists Are Perplexed and Witnesses Terrified. J. David, what year is this? 67? Whoa. UFO and the sonic boom. Terror at the ranch. UFOs in deep freeze. Flying saucers. Fact or fiction. Edgar Casey on Atlantis by Edgar Evans Casey under the editorship of Hugh Lynn Casey. Memphis, Tennessee. Communique. This book may be worth something. I doubt it, though. 1968. It's nice. Decent copy. Not falling apart like that other book. Thought I had more UFO books. I guess not. House of Strangers, Jennifer Hale. Another gothic romance. What the hell is that ball there? Is it supposed to be on there? Romance that will not die traps Susan in a terrifying game of forfeits with her life as the prize. It's always a castle in the background. Still don't know what that is. Is that supposed to be a moon or something? What the hell is that? House of Murder. Years of hating had turned Blair Thornton into the bitterest of men, despite the fact that he was one of the wealthiest men in Florida. There's castles in Florida. I guess that's not a castle, but more like a huge hotel. Antisocial Register. Alfred Hitchcock's. Alfred Hitchcock's. Alfred Hitchcock's Antisocial Register. What does that mean? Tune me in. The Empty Room. I'll go with you. The Watchdogs of Mollycoddle. Dead Drunk. The Last Autopsy. Sabotage. Once again, Alfred Hitchcock, not so secret agent of the underworld, has been discovered consorting with known madmen, murderers, ghouls, and other unsavory characters. Posing under a cloak of respectability, Hitchcock is clearly seeking to torpedo the good life. Although Hitchcock will not admit this sinister charge, the evidence is stacked against him as witness his antisocial register. Never before released in paperback. The 14th Mystery Writers of America anthologies, Tales for a Rainy Night. A luscious mulligatawny of detection, suspense, fantasy, comedy, realism, and horror. Year 61. Margaret Manners, the widow of Ephesus. The pink caterpillar. All right, that's all, bro. Goodbye. Goodbye.